Rain swallowed the city whole, not the soft kind of rain that poets admired. This was cold rain, heavy rain, the kind that turned neon lights into bleeding colors and made every alley look like a grave waiting to be filled. The people of Blackthorn City had learned long ago not to look too closely into the darkness, because sometimes the darkness looked back. A train screamed across the elevated tracks overhead as a young man stood motionless on the edge of a rooftop, his black coat snapping violently in the storm wind. His name was Cale Mercer, 24 years old, detective by profession, hunter by necessity. Lightning flashed across the skyline, revealing sharp gray eyes beneath wet black hair. A thin scar crossed his lower lip, old enough to fade, deep enough to remember. Below him, sirens echoed through the streets. Another murder, another body, another night where the city pretended not to notice. Kyle tightened the leather gloves around his fists and jumped from the rooftop. For one terrifying second, he simply fell through rain and darkness. Then, thud. He landed hard on a fire escape 3 stories lower, rolled smoothly, and continued downward without slowing. Steel groaned beneath his boots. Most people thought Cale Mercer was only a private investigator who solved missing person cases and exposed corrupt businessmen. That was the mask. The truth was uglier. At 13 years old, Cale watched his father bleed to death in front of him inside an underground subway tunnel. The killer was never found. The police buried the case. The city forgot. Cale didn't. For 11 years, he trained himself into something dangerous. Boxing, knife defense, street fighting, military combat manuals, criminal psychology, forensics, lockpicking, interrogation. He turned grief into obsession, and obsession into purpose. Now criminals whispered a different name when the lights went out. The Raven. Cale dropped into the alley below and immediately smelled blood. Fresh. A police barricade blocked the street ahead while officers moved nervously around a black van. A familiar voice stopped him. "You're late." Cale turned. Detective Elena Voss stood beneath a flickering street lamp, cigarette glowing faintly between her fingers. Tall, sharp-eyed, exhausted. The kind of woman who looked like she trusted nobody because experience taught her not to. "You called me after the body was found," Kyle replied calmly. "And yet somehow you still appear dramatically." "That's your opinion." A faint smirk touched Elena's lips before disappearing. "Victims inside." Kyle walked toward the van. The officers moved aside uneasily. Some hated him, some feared him. Most didn't understand how he kept solving cases the department couldn't. Inside the van, the smell intensified. A man sat tied upright against the wall, dead. His throat had been cut with surgical precision. But that wasn't the disturbing part. A symbol had been carved into the victim's chest. A black circle with 3 lines through the center. Cale's expression changed instantly. Elena noticed. "You've seen it before." Cale stayed silent. Rain hammered against the roof of the van. 11 years ago. His father's body had the exact same mark burned into his skin. "Elena," Cale said quietly. "Who found him?" "Dock worker. Called it in 30 minutes ago." "Security footage?" "Gone." "Witnesses?" "None." Cale crouched beside the corpse. Something was wrong, too clean, too organized. The killer wanted this body discovered. Then Cale noticed it. A tiny audio recorder hidden beneath the victim's collar. He removed it slowly. Click. The recorder activated automatically. Static hissed. Then a distorted voice spoke. "Hello, Raven?" Kyle froze. Elena's hand moved toward her gun instinctively. The voice continued. "You've spent 11 years searching for monsters." Thunder exploded outside. "But you never realize you are the son of one." The recording ended. Silence. For the first time in years, Cale felt genuine fear crawl beneath his skin. Then, bang! Gunshots erupted outside the alley. 3 officers screamed. Kyle and Elena rushed out of the van. Masked men flooded the street from both sides, dressed in dark gray tactical gear. Not gang members, professionals. One attacker raised an assault rifle toward Elena. Kyle moved instantly. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and hurled it with brutal force. Crack! The attacker collapsed before firing. Another charged Kyle with a combat knife. Kyle stepped sideways, caught the attacker's wrist, and slammed his elbow directly into the man's throat. The knife clattered away. A third enemy swung a baton toward Kale's head. Kale ducked low and drove a punch into the attacker's ribs. The man staggered. Kale followed with a spinning kick that smashed him into a parked police car. Glass exploded everywhere. Elena fired twice behind. "More coming!" Kale looked up. 5 more armed figures emerged through the rain. Too many. One of them stepped forward wearing a white porcelain mask marked with the same black symbol from the corpse. The masked figure pointed directly at Kale, then spoke through a voice modulator. "Bring him alive!" Every attacker rushed forward simultaneously. Kale's heartbeat slowed. Rain poured harder. The city lights blurred around him, and for the first time in 11 years, the hunt had finally begun. The alley became a battlefield. Rain fell in heavy sheets over Blackthorn City, turning the streets into mirrors of flashing red and blue light. Police sirens screamed through the storm as armored vehicles blocked every exit. Gunfire echoed between the buildings. Smoke curled through the air like living shadows. And in the middle of it all, masked soldiers advanced with unnatural discipline, like they weren't fighting, like they were executing a plan already decided. Kale Mercer moved through the chaos, too fast, too precise, too calm. A man lunged at him with a blade, but Kale caught his wrist mid-strike. A sharp twist. Bone cracked violently. The weapon dropped into the rainwater. Kale drove him backward into a brick wall, denting metal behind him. The attacker slid down unconscious. No hesitation, no fear, only control. "Elena!" Kale shouted. Detective Elena Voss was already moving. A masked gunman raised his rifle. Bang! Bang! Elena fired twice. The man dropped instantly into the water-soaked street, but more were coming, from every direction. And then, silence. The masked soldiers stopped. Every one of them froze at the same time. At the center of the alley stood their leader, a tall figure in a smooth white porcelain mask marked with a black symbol. He didn't hold a weapon. He didn't need one. He simply watched Kale, like he already knew him. Then the leader tilted his head slightly. "You fight exactly like him," the voice said through a distorted modulator. Kyle froze for half a second. That was enough. A soldier struck from the side with an electrified baton. Zizit! Electricity ripped through Kyle's body. He crashed into a police cruiser, gasping for air. 3 soldiers rushed him. Kyle rose slowly, then exploded into motion. 1 strike, 1 elbow, 1 knee, each movement precise, trained, efficient. But they kept coming. Too many. The masked leader raised a hand. Instantly, the entire battlefield stopped again. Even the rain felt louder in the silence. Then the leader walked forward and dropped something into the water. A photograph. Kyle picked it up, and everything in his body went cold. It was his father, alive, standing beside 3 unknown men, one of them wearing the same white mask. Elena stepped closer. "Kyle, what is this?" Kyle didn't answer. His mind was breaking the timeline of everything he thought he knew. Then the leader spoke again. "This is only the beginning." Boom! An explosion erupted at the far end of the alley. Fire swallowed the street. Windows shattered. Smoke devoured everything. When Elena looked back, the masked soldiers were gone. No footsteps, no traces, just like they were never there. Only rain remained. 1 hour later, Kale sat alone in his apartment. The room was not a home. It was a war room. Maps covered every wall. Red strings connected photos, missing persons, corruption cases, unsolved murders. Every thread led to something hidden beneath the city. But nothing explained the photograph. Kale placed it under a dim lamp. His father looked different. Not afraid of death, afraid of truth. He flipped it over. Coordinates. And a message. Beneath St. Graves Station. Kale stood still. St. Graves Station had been abandoned for 15 years. Officially, structural collapse. Unofficially, people vanished there. No bodies recovered, no explanations given, only rumors, only fear. Kale opened a locked drawer and took out a pistol. He checked it once, then twice. Elena entered behind him. "You're going there, aren't you?" Cale didn't turn around. Yes. You think this is connected to your father? I don't think, Cale said quietly. I know. The knock. 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 3 slow knocks echoed through the apartment. Cale froze instantly. He drew his weapon. No one knew this location. No one. He moved to the door slowly, checked the camera, empty hallway. Nothing. Then, a black envelope taped to the door. Cale removed it carefully. Inside was an old cassette tape, red ink written across it. Play me alone. Elena watched from behind him. Don't. Cale already walked to the recorder. He inserted the tape. Press play. Static filled the room. Then, a voice, real, human, and impossible. Kyle! His breath stopped. It was his father. If you're hearing this, it means they found you. Elena stepped closer. That's not possible. The voice continued. They are not criminals. They are not mercenaries. They are something older. Cale's grip tightened. Lightning flashed outside the window. The city lit up for a split second. Then darkness returned. But something had changed. The truth was no longer hidden. It was awake, and it was waiting beneath the city. Rain covered the streets of Blackthorn City as Cale Mercer followed the hidden coordinates written behind the photograph. The trail led him toward an abandoned subway station buried beneath the city. St. Graves Station. The station had been closed for years. Kyle slowly walked down the rusted staircase with a flashlight in one hand and a gun in the other. Water dripped from broken pipes while old train tracks disappeared into darkness. Then he saw it. The same black symbol connected to his father's death painted across the tunnel wall. A cold whisper echoed through the station. Kyle stopped moving. Someone was there. He followed the sound deeper underground until he discovered a hidden iron door marked with the symbol. The lock had already been broken. Cale pushed the door open carefully. Inside was a secret room filled with dusty files, photographs, and documents. Hundreds of missing people covered the walls beside pictures of politicians, police officers, and businessmen. Then Kyle found a photograph of his father. Underneath it were the words, "Asset compromised." Kyle stared silently in shock. Suddenly, a voice echoed behind him. "You were never supposed to find this place." Kyle turned quickly as masked soldiers stepped out of the darkness surrounding the room. The masked leader slowly walked forward. "Your father once worked for our organization," he said. Cale tightened his grip on the gun. "You're lying." Before another word could be spoken, gunfire exploded through the chamber. Cale fought through the soldiers inside the narrow tunnels, using brutal close combat to survive. The underground station shook violently as bullets tore through concrete walls. The masked leader watched calmly from the shadows. "Your father betrayed us," he said coldly. Then suddenly, an explosion rocked the entire station. The ceiling cracked apart as debris crashed onto the tracks below. Emergency lights flashed red through the smoke-filled tunnels. The station was collapsing. Cale grabbed the files and ran through the darkness while the masked soldiers chased him deeper underground. The whispers inside the tunnels became louder, almost alive. Another explosion shook the station as the ground beneath Kyle suddenly gave way, and the darkness swallowed him whole. Rain poured across Blackthorn City as emergency sirens echoed above the destroyed St. Graves Station. Beneath the rubble, Cale Mercer slowly regained consciousness. Dust filled the air while broken concrete trapped the tunnels around him. Pain rushed through his body as he forced himself to stand. The underground station was collapsing fast. Then Cale remembered the files. He quickly checked inside his coat. Still there. The stolen documents had survived. Cale grabbed his handgun and pushed through a damaged maintenance tunnel while distant explosions echoed behind him. Water leaked from broken pipes as the station groaned around him like it was alive. After several exhausting minutes, Cale finally escaped through an old drainage exit leading into the streets behind the city. He survived. But someone had destroyed the station to erase the truth hidden beneath it. Hours later, Cale arrived at Elena's apartment covered in blood, dust, and rain. Elena opened the door in shock. "Kyle! What happened?" Kyle dropped the stolen files onto the table. We found something big. The two spent the night searching through documents recovered from the underground chamber. Photographs, government records, missing person reports, financial transactions. Every file pointed toward the same hidden organization, the Hollow Circle, a secret network controlling crime, corruption, disappearances, and powerful people across the city for decades. Politicians, businessmen, police officials, judges. Anyone connected to the organization was protected. Anyone who opposed them vanished. Kyle discovered several files connected to his father, Aaron Mercer. Old mission reports, surveillance logs, hidden investigations. Then Kyle found a final unfinished report written shortly before his father's death. Inside, Aaron Mercer described illegal operations connected to something called the Awakening. At the bottom of the page were his final words: "If the truth reaches the public, the Hollow Circle falls." Kyle stared silently at the document. "He tried to expose them," Elena whispered. Kyle slowly nodded. "And they killed him for it." Across the city, inside a dark underground cathedral, members of the Hollow Circle gathered beneath candlelight. The masked leader stood before them silently. "The Mercer boy survived," one member warned. The leader remained calm. "Prepare for the awakening," he ordered. The room immediately fell silent. "And bring me Kyle Mercer alive." The next night, Elena traced one of the Hollow Circle members to a wealthy businessman named Victor Hale. Kyle and Elena secretly entered Hale's luxury mansion during a storm. Everything inside looked normal, until Kyle discovered a hidden elevator leading underground. Beneath the mansion was a secret torture chamber. Chains hung from concrete walls beside blood-stained medical tables. Photographs of missing victims covered the room. Before Kyle could investigate further, armed guards surrounded him. Gunfire exploded through the underground chamber. Kyle fought through the attackers in a brutal battle, while alarms echoed across the mansion. Bullets tore through concrete walls as Kyle barely escaped through a maintenance tunnel moments before more guards arrived. Outside, Elena pulled him into the getaway car and the two escaped into the rain-covered streets. Later that night, Elena searched through stolen mansion files on her laptop. Suddenly, her expression changed. "What is it?" Kyle asked. Elena slowly turned the screen toward him. Encrypted police records filled the monitor. Deleted evidence, buried investigations, internal police transfers. Someone inside the police department was secretly helping the Hollow Circle. Elena looked at Kyle seriously. "They're inside the department." Kale's expression darkened. "And they know we're coming."